In the dust-choked plains of the Old West, one name was whispered with a mix of fear and grim respect. Silas. He was a bounty hunter, a shadow who moved from one wanted poster to the next. His world was one of cold steel and colder gold. We first see him under the blistering sun, his face a mask of hard-won experience, as he confronts a notorious outlaw named Jedediah. There's no negotiation, no mercy. The clash is brutal and swift. When the dust settles, Silas stands alone, the price on Jedediah's head, his only reward. Hunted men for gold, never for justice. That was the code he lived by, a simple transaction of life for coin. He collected his bounty, his expression unchanging, another ghost added to his long list. For Silas, this was just another day, another job done. He believed his heart was as barren as the land he roamed. As Silas prepared to ride out, a small figure emerged from behind a cluster of rocks. It was a boy, no older than 10, with eyes that held a storm of grief. He clutched a worn wooden toy, his knuckles white. The boy just stood there, watching Silas with an unnerving stillness. Silas, accustomed to the company of thieves and killers, found the child's silent gaze more unsettling than any drawn weapon. "Aye." He tried to ignore him, turning to his horse, but the boy's voice, though quiet, cut through the wind. "You killed my father." Silas froze, his hand hovering over his saddle. He turned slowly. The boy's lip trembled, but his eyes were steady. "Jedediah was my PA now. Now I have no one." The words hung in the air, heavier than any bag of gold. The world of simple transactions had just become impossibly complicated. The boy wasn't a threat. He was a consequence, a living, breathing testament to the life Silas had just taken. Silas grunted, his voice rough from disuse. "Go home, boy. I've got no business with you." He mounted his horse, intending to leave the child and his grief behind, but the boy was stubborn. He followed a small, persistent shadow trailing the man who had orphaned him. For days, Silas tried everything to shake him. He rode faster, took treacherous paths, and offered sharp, cutting words, but the boy, whose name he learned was Leo, simply kept pace. Silas's annoyance slowly curdled into a strange, unfamiliar feeling. Then one evening as they made camp, 2 rival bounty hunters emerged from the twilight. They'd been tracking Jedediah too, and were furious to have lost the prize. Seeing Leo, one of them grinned cruelly. Well, looks like the viper left a little snake." He lunged for the boy. In a flash, something inside Silas snapped. He moved with a speed that belied his weariness, his gun drawn. Single shot echoed through the night, a warning that was anything but empty. He stood between the men and the boy, a reluctant guardian. The encounter was a turning point. Word spread that Jedediah's son was alive, and suddenly, Leo was more than just an orphan. He was a target. His father had left behind a web of debts and enemies, from vengeful gangs to desperate creditors, all of whom saw the boy as leverage or a loose end to be tied up. The bounty on Jedediah was paid, but the cost was still being tallied. Every town they entered, every trail they followed, was fraught with danger. Ambushes became a regular occurrence. Silas, who had spent his life hunting men, now found himself hunted. He fought off ambushes in narrow alleys, outsmarted gangs in ramshackle saloons, and faced down rivals who saw taking the boy as an easy path to a different kind of fortune. Each fight, each narrow escape, chipped away at the icy wall around his heart. He was no longer just protecting a consequence. He was protecting a person. The conflict reached its boiling point when Jedediah's old gang, led by a ruthless man named Corbin, cornered them in a desolate canyon. This wasn't about a forgotten debt. This was about revenge and power. Corbin wanted to eliminate the last trace of his former leader. As the sun beat down on the canyon walls, Silas faced Corbin and his men. He looked at Leo, who was hidden behind a rock, his face pale with fear, but his eyes filled with a desperate trust. In that moment, Silas understood. This wasn't for a bounty. There was no gold to be won, no poster to be claimed. This duel was for a life. The silence was broken by the sharp crack of gunfire. The canyon became a whirlwind of dust and lead. Silas moved with a precision born of 100 battles, but this time it was different. He wasn't fighting for survival. He was fighting for a future for the boy who had shown him that a life was worth more than its price. When the last echo of gunfire faded, Silas was the only one left standing, wounded but victorious. He slumped against a rock, the adrenaline leaving him weak. Leo rushed to his side, his small hands trying to tend to a gash on Silas's arm. There were no words, only a shared look that spoke volumes. The man who had taken everything from the boy had just given him everything back. In protecting the boy, he found the humanity he thought long dead. The cycle of violence he had perpetuated was broken, not by gold, but by an act of selfless protection. Later, as the moon rose over the silent canyon, they rode off together. Two solitary figures against a vast, starry sky. Their path was uncertain, their future a blank page. But they were no longer alone. The bounty hunter and the boy, a man who had lost his soul, and a child who had lost his father, rode on, searching not for a bounty, but for a place to call home.